Well, welcome to this week's speaker's tip. I want to talk about constructing your speech and the material that goes in it. And one of the things that as a speaker I have to do on a regular basis is we'll get a speech, and this is also a lot of the coaching that I do. I get this speech that's so long and we have to cut it down, or we have to put more material in it to actually make it work. And then we have to get it to fit within the time frame of the speech. Now, again, we're in the contest season right now. And so in the Toastmasters contest, it's a 5 to 7 minute speech. It's got to fit within there. And that's normally somewhere between 700 and 900 words. 900 is a lot, 700 is a little, 750 to 850 is sort of the sweet spot. But there's a lot of times I'll get speeches that come in that are 1,200 or 1,400 words. And we have to figure out how to cut that speech down. And there's a couple points that I want to share with you. First of all, there's a lot of ways to say something. And just because you wrote it out one way, and maybe it took 15 words, you have to be able to look at that and say, can I say that in like 5 words? And there are ways that you can condense down the number of words so that you actually get the same concept across with less words. The other thing that happens in a lot of speeches is that you'll repeat the concept. And you repeat some phrase in it, like, you said, you'll have a phrase, well, I was so upset. I've never been so mad in my life. Then you explain about it and you go, the anger was continuing to boil in me or something as you go on. And the fact that you already told the audience that you were upset up here, you don't have to repeat the fact that you're upset a little further down in your speech. And so when I go through a speech and I'm looking for, we have already set the scene in the mind of the audience. We don't have to repeat that phrase. So there's a lot of duplication that I've been able to pull out of speeches. And you can pull out of speeches by saying, have I already set that scene? Have I already said that once in the speech? I don't have to repeat it and repeat it. The audience knows I'm upset, or the audience knows this was a tragedy, or the audience knows it's really cold outside, or whatever the point I'm making. Am I repeating that point as I go down? And the other thing that happens is that there's a lot of things that we put in speeches, myself included, that are what I think I've covered this before, but it's called added inapplicable. You can take it out of the speech and it does not make any difference to the message of the speech. So when I'm editing a speech, one of the things I'll do is I'll go down and look at each line and said, if I took that line out, or if I took a phrase out of a sentence, would that sentence meaning to the message in the speech change? Does that dramatically change it where you do not get the message? And I just had a speech that came in, and it was at about 880 words. And the speaker was speaking about a minute over, and he was having a hard time with it. And I said, okay, let's go through it. So we went through it, and we took it down to about 750 words. And when I first read it, it seemed like a really tight speech. And I went, man, I don't know where I'm going to cut anything in this. But I started looking at each and every line in the speech and say, what can I take out? And when you're doing this, it's a little bit like picking your favorite child. And I know I've covered this point before, but there's things in your speech that you love, and you don't want to take it out, but you have to make it fit within the time frame. And so here is a viewpoint that I developed that helped push me over into what I call more of a champion viewpoint in speaking, or a champion viewpoint in anything you do. And that is that nothing in my speech is sacred. Nothing is sacred. Anything can be cut out of it, because there would be things in my speeches that I loved so much. No, I want that in the speech. And the speech wasn't working. And I had a sacred viewpoint on it. And when I assumed the viewpoint that anything in my speech could be cut out and I had to make the speech work, all of a sudden I started seeing all sorts of stuff that get cut out of a speech and still make the speech work. And it actually usually tightened the speech up and made it a lot better, because it was my concept of how great this phrase was, or how great this story, or this line of words that I'd put together, that I have to have that in there. It's so important, and you can pull it out. It really does not make that much difference in the speech. So the point is, can I pull it out? Does it change the meaning of the speech? And it's amazing how we can take speeches and pull them down to the point that we've got fewer words and we can relax now into the speech. and give it. And one of my other points, my main point today is nothing is sacred. Nothing is sacred in your speech. I'm going to back that up with something else, which is another one of my points I've made, is the audience never knows what you didn't tell them. So you might have great stories, you might have great examples, you might have great metaphors, you might have other inspirational points that were meaningful to you, but they don't fit into the bucket. You got this little piece of time that you have an opportunity to speak. They don't fit in there. The audience never knows what you don't tell them. They just know how that speech came together. And if that speech is effective and gets your point across, it's an effective speech. So my tips today: nothing is sacred in your speech. Be willing to take anything out of it to make it work. And understand that the audience does not know what you didn't tell them. They only know what you said. Until next week.